dive into the chilling world of My Teacher, My Obsession, where the lines between admiration and obsession blur dangerously. Watch as Riley, a high school senior, navigates a new school under her father's shadow, only to get entangled in a web of deception, desire, and danger that spirals out of control. Uncover dark secrets, twisted allegiances, and shocking revelations in a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't miss out on the drama, suspense, and heart-stopping moments. Tune in now for a full recap that uncovers every twisted layer. So, the movie kicks off with this super eerie scene where there's a janitor just finishing up his cleaning gig. He's all set to change out of his work clothes when suddenly he hears these strange noises. Curious, he checks it out, right? And bam, he finds this girl crying her eyes out. She's all desperate, asking him to get help. The janitor starts looking around to find someone who can help, but then, plot twist, another girl appears out of nowhere, blood all over her hands, and she's like, "Dude, run!" Totally creepy start, right? Then, the scene shifts to this guy asking a girl if she's excited. The girl is Riley, a high school senior, and it's her first day at a new school. She's moving because her dad, Chris, who is an English teacher, wanted a fresh start somewhere new. Even though Riley isn't thrilled about the move, like, at all, she's got no choice but to tag along with her dad's plans. So, they drive to the school together, and Chris is all thankful that she's there, even though it means she had to leave her old life behind. But get this. Riley is so not into being seen as the teacher's daughter that she refuses to even walk into school with him. Imagine that tension. Next up, we meet Kyla, the yearbook photographer. She's snapping photos of students left and right when she suddenly spots Chris. Dude, she's immediately smitten. She starts taking a bunch of his photos, totally engrossed, right? But then, here comes Trisha, this super trendy and gorgeous girl. She saunters over and asks Kyla to take her photo. After Kyla snaps a few of Trisha, she's back to focusing on Chris. Trisha catches on and mentions, "Hey, that's our new English teacher. And man, he's hot. I bet I can have a meeting out of my hand in 2 days." Kyla, though, isn't too thrilled about that comment. As the class wraps up, there's this awkward moment where Chris waves at Riley, but she just brushes him off. Kyla catches all this drama from the sidelines. Then we see Trisha making her move, flirting with Chris like a pro. Meanwhile, Riley's found a quiet spot to do some drawing, just minding her own business, when Kyla decides to join her. They strike up a conversation, and Kyla, seeing an opportunity, takes a photo of Riley for the yearbook. She casually asks for Riley's last name, and Riley, kind of cornered, ends up admitting she's Chris's daughter. Kyla, sensing the delicate situation, promises to keep it under wraps. So now that Kyla has Riley's secret, she's all about getting closer to her. She plays it cool, saying she's struggling with a subject and suggests they should hit the books together. Riley, maybe feeling a bit lonely or just being nice, invites her over after school. Kyla's thrilled, right? But here's the creepy part. She secretly follows Riley to the car and snaps a photo of Chris. Talk about obsession. Later at Riley's place, Chris is being a dad, asking Riley how her first day went. Riley mentions she made a new friend, Kyla. Cut to Kyla's house, and she walks in on her mom, Jess, getting ready for a date. Jess is all dolled up, and Kyla's kind of intrigued by who her mom's seeing, but Jess keeps the details close to her chest, promising to spill the beans when things get more serious. Back in her room, Kyla's mind wanders off to, well, not so innocent thoughts about Chris. She's really got it bad for him, fantasizing about being with him. It gets pretty intense. Then, when she visits Riley at her house, things get a bit more complicated. Riley opens up about her family drama, how her mom cheated on Chris, which is why she's living with him post-divorce. Kyla, not to be outdone, shares her own sob story about her dad leaving them when she was just a kid. But here's the kicker. While Riley steps out for a bit, Kyla sneaks into Chris's room and lies on his bed, daydreaming about what it would be like to be with him. Seriously, the girl's got it bad. Back at school, there's another drama-filled class, with Chris. Trisha, ever the flirt, tries her best to get Chris's attention, but she's striking out. Big time. Not one to give up, Trisha switches her focus and corners Riley after class. She drops the bomb. She knows Riley is Chris's daughter and has seen them heading home together often. But she's cool about it, promising to keep it on the down low. She even probes Riley about her friendship with Kyla and throws in a warning to tread carefully because Kyla doesn't exactly have a track record with friends. Then, in a twist, Trisha invites Riley to go shopping with her that evening, which totally irks Kyla when she spots them together. After Trisha bounces, Kyla confronts Riley, all fired up. She warns Riley that Trisha is bad news, just trying to get close to Chris. She even spills some tea about Trisha messing around with the history teacher last year, which ended in a huge scandal, and the teacher getting axed. Kyla's pretty adamant about not letting that history repeat with Chris. Riley, caught in the middle, turns to Kyla for some advice on what to do next. That night, Kyla hits up Riley to chat about her upcoming 18th birthday. She's all excited, suggesting they throw a bash at Riley's place. She casually asks if other students have been trying to make moves on Chris, but Riley's clueless about any of that. However, when Riley mentions Chris is seeing someone he met at the grocery store, Kyla's mind starts racing. Her mom had mentioned meeting a guy there too. Coincidence? Kyla's wheels are turning now. Things heat up when Chris pops over to their house. Kyla, who's already super into Chris, feels super awkward about the whole dating scenario unfolding before her eyes. So, what does she do? In a moment of panic, she accidentally spills water on Chris's clothes. Yup. Talk about a mess. Now, with nowhere else to go, they end up having their date right there at home. Kyla, feeling a mix of jealousy and curiosity, retreats to her room but can't help herself and peeks at them. She catches them in a kiss and freaks out, screaming that someone is stalking her. She plays it up big, insisting she has to stay with Chris for safety. Chris, being the decent guy, agrees, especially since Riley is out on her date with Trisha. So, Chris ends up not going home that night. The awkwardness doesn't stop there. The next day, Kyla, in a total fluster, accidentally walks in on Chris in the bathroom, and he's stark naked. Mortified, she slams the door shut. But since Chris is still around, she ends up riding in his car, waiting for Riley. Kyla tries flirting again, but it's cut short when Riley shows up. At school the next morning, Kyla pulls Riley aside, upset about her hanging out with Trisha despite all the warnings. She accuses Trisha of using Riley to get to Chris, but Riley fires back, telling Kyla that Trisha claimed it was actually Kyla who had been involved with the history teacher, not her. Kyla is shocked and denies everything. Frustrated, she later confronts Trisha, warning her to stay away from Riley. But Trisha isn't having any of it and stands her ground, refusing to back down from the confrontation. That same night, Kyla decides to amp up her game by taking some seductive photos of herself. But things take a weird turn the next morning when she finds those same photos plastered all over her locker. Totally freaked out, she rushes to Chris, telling him she's being harassed. Chris, being the supportive teacher, vows to help catch whoever's messing with her. Despite the drama, Kyla and Riley manage to patch things up. Kyla opens up and confesses that she had a relationship with her history teacher, claiming he manipulated her into it. The girls share a heartfelt moment and hug it out, seeming to truly reconcile. But later that night, things get even more complicated. As Chris and Jess are getting ready for a date, Kyla, pretending to be Trisha, sends risque messages to Chris's phone. She then craftily shows these messages to Jess, making it look like Chris is messing around with a student. Jess, completely misled by this, is furious and kicks Chris out. There he is, all alone in his car, when Kyla slips in and seduces him into a kiss. Meanwhile, back at school, Trish is still trying her luck with Chris. She doesn't get far though, because Kyla interrupts her by bringing Chris a cat that he'd left at their house. Just when you think it can't get more dramatic, the police show up and take Trisha away. All thanks to Kyla's manipulations spinning out of control. After school, Riley expresses her worries about Trisha, but Kyla is dismissive, saying it's not her problem. The plot thickens at home when Jess reveals that a phone used to send those scandalous messages to Chris was found in Trisha's locker, along with the seductive photos of Kyla. It's a tangled web of deceit. On Riley's birthday, Kyla turns up with gifts, including a bottle of alcohol, pushing the idea that no one should turn 18 without a celebratory drink. She then finds an excuse to slip inside the house and begins to seduce Chris. Things escalate quickly, and just as they're about to get intimate, Riley walks in. The shock on her face says it all. Hurt and furious, she storms out. Chris tries to catch up to explain, but Riley isn't having any of it and just walks away. Back inside, Chris is trying to get dressed while Kyla, realizing the chaos she has caused, pleads with him to stay. Despite her pleas, Chris knows he needs to fix things with Riley and leaves to find her, leaving Kyla alone with the mess she's made. In the next tumultuous scene, Riley desperately messages Jess to update her on the ongoing drama at school. Meanwhile, Chris attempts to mend things with Riley, but she's having none of it and storms off after class. Kyla, still fixated on Chris, tries to rekindle their connection, but their interaction is abruptly interrupted when Jess shows up, slapping Chris not once, but twice, and drags Kyla out of the classroom. Outside, Kyla lashes out at Jess, accusing her of being jealous and unable to snag Chris for herself. She boldly claims her legal age and professes her love for Chris. The following day brings a moment of peace as Riley and Chris reconcile by the pool, smoothing over the previous day's chaos. But the drama doesn't stop. Kyla plots her next move and calls Trisha to meet her before school. When Trisha arrives, Kyla executes her plan. She admits to setting Trisha up and then dramatically breaks her own fingers to stage an attack. As Riley and Chris approach, Kyla screams for help, accusing Trisha of the assault. The police believe her act and arrest Trisha, while Kyla is taken to the hospital. At the hospital, a confrontation unfolds between Kyla and Riley, where Kyla feigns acceptance that her relationship with Chris is over. She manipulates the situation further by asking Riley to take over her yearbook duties for an upcoming volleyball game, to which Riley reluctantly agrees. As Riley departs, Kyla seizes the moment to attempt one last persuasion with Chris, telling him they can be together now that Trisha is out of the picture. However, Chris firmly rejects her, declaring their relationship is definitively over and demanding she leave him alone. Undeterred, Kyla chillingly insists that she will never leave him, and reminds him of their inevitable daily encounters at school. Pushed to his limit, Chris decides the only escape is to resign from his job. He heads back to the classroom to collect his things, determined to cut all ties with Kyla. In a desperate and dark turn of events, Kyla, fueled by her obsession, steals a scalpel from the hospital and makes a beeline for the school. There, she confronts Riley with a chilling ultimatum. Only one of them can be in Chris's life. Without hesitation, she stabs Riley in the stomach. Driven by her delusion, Kyla then storms into Chris's classroom, scalpel in hand, pressing it against his throat. She declares that they are destined to be together and shockingly admits that she was the manipulator in her previous teacher-student scandal. In a struggle, Chris manages to push her away, but Kyla cunningly trips him, causing him to hit his head and fall unconscious. The noise attracts a janitor, who stumbles upon the scene. Kyla, feigning injury, pleads for help, but as Riley, severely wounded yet resilient, warns him to run, Kyla mercilessly cuts the janitor's throat, killing him instantly. A fierce fight ensues between Riley and Kyla. Despite her injuries, Riley summons the strength to overpower Kyla just as the police arrive. The aftermath sees both Riley and Kyla being whisked away in separate ambulances, their fates diverging after a tumultuous confrontation. As time passes, Chris decides it's best to start anew, relocating to a new place. Meanwhile, Riley, recovered and determined, is seen leaving for her first day of college, bidding her father goodbye. Unbeknownst to them, a hooded figure lurks in the distance, watching them intently, leaving a haunting suggestion that their ordeal might not be over. The movie closes on this eerie note, leaving viewers pondering the true end of this twisted tale. As we conclude our journey through the intense and unsettling world of My Teacher, My Obsession, we're left to reflect on the potent dangers of infatuation and the dark turns that manipulation can take. This film does more than just entertain. It provokes us to question the boundaries of control and the consequences of crossing them. From its gripping start to its dramatic finale, this movie keeps viewers on the edge of their seats, challenging our understanding of trust and deception. If you found yourself captivated by this thrilling exploration of obsession and its impacts, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more insightful movie recaps and discussions. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Considering everything that unfolded, do you believe Kyla's actions were a product of her circumstances, or was she the architect of her own demise? How do you view the roles that other characters played in this drama? Share your perspectives in the comments below, and let's delve into a discussion about the complexities of human behavior and responsibility as depicted in this film.